This is Huntsville Sports Weekly, where we talk all things Huntsville, Texas sports, Hornets, Bearcats, and more. And now, here's your hosts, Rob Hipp and Josh Criswell.
All right, friends. Well, here we are, episode number 6 of Huntsville Sports Weekly. I'm Rob Hipp from the KSAM Sports Director, always joined by my good friend, Mr. Josh Criswell of the Huntsville Item. Josh, man, it's good to be back, and here we are, episode 6 already. We got a great show lined up today. We're going to talk a lot about Huntsville Hornet football coming up this season, and some more. We're going to talk about the magazine that you guys put out again, but Josh, going to be a fun one here today, man.
Special guest joining us today, one of our very special guests, Brandon Scott from SportsRadio 610 down in Houston. Brandon runs the station's digital presence, also reports for the team, and we're going to talk to him a little bit about what it's been like covering pro sports during a pandemic. Obviously, the Houston Rockets in the postseason right now had a big win last night to keep on rolling, set up a showdown with the Lakers, and also Brandon, a Sam Houston State alum, so I'm sure we'll ask him a thing or two about his time in Huntsville. So I guess, right now we'll welcome to the show Brandon Scott from SportsRadio 610 in Houston. Brandon, thanks for taking a few minutes to chat with us today.
Oh, man, I'm glad to do it, man, especially talking to the Bearcats and to Huntsville, man. I'm always glad to do that.
I was going to say, how long has it been since you've been up here in the Ville?
Oh, man, when was the last time I was there? Maybe a year ago, passing through. I've been to Dallas a couple of times in the last couple of years, and so I think passing through, seeing things how the old Merskys is Potato Shack and all the things that are going on along 45. I was there when they were developing the Ravenwood, or at least what they called the Ravenwood area at the time, which is now Target and everything around it. But at the time, man, when I lived there, it was just Target. So every time I pass through, it is incredible.
Absolutely. Well, we'll talk about your time here in Huntsville later on. But, right off the bat, Houston Rockets last night, a big playoff win, 104-102 to beat OKC in Game 7 and get on to the next round, set up a showdown with the Lakers. I mean, Brandon, I'm watching that. Me and you both grew up in Houston. We've been watching the Rockets. And even with that Astros World Series a couple years ago, it still feels like Houston sports fans kind of anticipate the worst. And am I wrong in kind of saying that that's how it was feeling down the stretch last night?
Yeah, there's definitely some kind of syndrome, some kind of shock, sticker shock that's still with us from years past and things that have happened throughout Houston sports history. But that's not just the case here with the Rockets. I mean, they had been playing poorly on and off for much of that series. I mean, I think we could make the argument, especially as folks following the Rockets, that it shouldn't have even gotten to a Game 7 to begin with. There were so many opportunities prior to that to have locked up the series. So when it gets to Game 7, and Lou Dort, of all people, is putting up 30 on me,
like in the second quarter.
Yeah, man, it just feels like, okay. And then, of course, Harden's not shooting the ball well, and Russ is still rusty. Better than he was the previous 2 games, but still a little rusty. And it's like, man, this just doesn't feel right. It actually feels like a classic Houston sports fan letdown moment. So
yeah, the timeline last night was an adventure during those final few minutes.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, it just felt like you knew what was coming, or at the very least, you were trying to shield yourself from getting your hopes up. And credit to the Rockets, man. They made a couple of key defensive plays at the end. Obviously, the Harden block that everybody's talking about, Harden blocking that 3-pointer on Dort toward the end of the game, but also Russell Westbrook and PJ Tucker blowing up that final play that didn't work out for OKC when they just had the 1 second left. Westbrook flashing out to Danilo Gallinari, making sure he didn't get a good look at a long 3, and then him and PJ Tucker both getting in there in between the inbounds play and Steven Adams, which I don't know what he was going to do if he got the ball from where they were going to pass it to him, but nonetheless they deflected it. And the game was over, and they got out of that one, even though it was a lot of scary moments.
Yeah, no doubt. And you talked about the big defensive plays down the stretch. You mentioned the block by James Harden. For him, not a good night offensively. And how big is that for him? Because he's always a guy that everyone wants to harp on James Harden's defense. The people that watch him closely have seen a change these past few seasons. How big of a moment do you think that was for him on a night where, as he said himself after the game and not as nice terms, wasn't very good offensively.
Yeah, I always thought that he was an adequate post defender and a decent selective defender. Like, he was a selective defender. He would play when he felt like it, and he put so much energy on offense. You could see how sometimes he might feel it okay to take a possession here and there off on defense. But he talked about after the game, he was telling us how he really committed to it and really has focused on improving in that area, particularly this season. And particularly in this series, knowing some of the things that Oklahoma City does well, or at least did well coming into the series. They didn't turn the ball over a lot. They had excellent guard play. And so obviously that meant that James Harden was going to have some kind of challenge, defensively. And I think he stepped up to it. Now, the Rockets, James Harden's their leader, but the Rockets in general are streaky shooters. And James Harden's not immune to that. He definitely did not have his best shooting game, but I think it meant a lot to be able to come in there and have a big defensive play that goes against the narrative that he doesn't play defense. I don't know if you can ever actually really say that again, because you'll always have this as a tangible,
right?
As a tangible example of him doing exactly that. So yeah, that was huge. That was really big. And now he's not. That doesn't mean he's some kind of lockdown defender. That doesn't mean he's an elite defender or anything like that. But when he hones in and when he really gives it his effort, he's adequate there.
Yeah, I think you nailed it directly with the selective defense. We've always seen that, and last night was kind of one of his top moment, I think, as a defender. And just kind of looking ahead to that next series, do you think they have any shot at taking down the Lakers?
I think that it's just a fascinating matchup. Like, I don't think that they are. I do think they have a shot. I do think they have a shot, because I don't think that there's a tremendous difference in talent level between the Lakers and the Rockets. I just don't. I'm honestly not overly impressed by either team supporting cast, to be, if I'm honest with you.
A few key guys too that didn't make it with them to the bubble.
Exactly. I mean, when you consider that, Avery Bradley being the main one, and he would be a guy who would be tasked with guarding James Harden and or Russell Westbrook at various times. So I mean, I think that's a huge thing. One thing to note, the difference between the two series is that the Thunder had excellent guard play between Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder coming off the bench. But the Lakers don't really have that. Outside of LeBron, if you want to, you can consider him an anything kind of player. But outside of him, they don't really have great guard play that you really have to worry about. So you would expect the Rockets guards to outplay the Lakers guards and just see what is the matchup schematic chess match that they play, as far as going who goes big, who goes small. How obviously the Lakers are going to go big and try to exploit the mismatch with the with the Rockets not having, with the Rockets not playing a big guy. But how long do they do that, and does that work for them? I think it's a fascinating matchup because they play so differently, or at the very least their personnel is so different, so they play differently. And I think it's going to be a fascinating matchup.
Yeah, going to be an exciting one, no doubt. Obviously, I know Rob wants to ask you a question or two about, your time up here in Huntsville. But before we get to that, I just got to ask you, you've been covering sports like crazy down there at SportsRadio 610 these past few months. And especially this past month or so, it seems like it's been, kicked into overdrive. For you, what's this experience been like? I know you got to hop on a Zoom press conference here in just a few, but, what's it been like, covering the Astros, Rockets, Texans, all these teams, in the middle of a pandemic?
Man, I mean, it's I think I just told you a minute ago, it's like the sports fire hose right now. Mm-hmm. And I'll actually give credit to Sean Pendergast for coining that term. He was the one that put it in my head as a sports fire hose. But that's exactly what it feels like, because, I mean, when do you get the answer is never, spoiler alert, but when do you get the NBA playoffs in the middle of, and you're smack dab in the middle of the Major League Baseball season, not the beginning, but the middle of the Major League Baseball season, all with a week to spare before the NFL season opener, which, by the way, is going to be the Texans Chiefs to open up the NFL season during a pandemic. Like, all of that stuff is historic. It's overwhelming a little bit because, like for example, right now, my day, we talked to Dusty Baker and a handful of Astros players about an hour before I talked to you. I just talked to Bill O'Brien about 10 minutes ago. And then next, I've got players in 10 minutes from now, and then the Rockets 10 minutes after that. And then all the while, the Astros are now playing, So, like, it's just everything is happening at once. It's pretty fun. Like, honestly, I mentioned being overwhelmed, but, man, it's been awesome, finally get sports back and to have it all at the same time. Like, you're not lacking for content. You're not lacking for conversation. You're not lacking for entertainment. So I can't be mad at it.
Well, we're talking to Brandon Scott. Brandon, I know you got to go here in just a little bit, man. But from Houston Sports Radio 610, as the voice of the Bearcats, I got to ask you a question, man, about Sam Houston State. You've been in this part for a long time. Tell us real quick one of your favorite Sam Houston State memories, man, relating to football.
Yeah, my favorite is actually a basketball, but I'll give you football.
That's fine.
No, I'll give. So let me just give it all to you. So for football, obviously my favorite memory is also one of my worst, because I covered those first two trips to North Dakota, trips to Frisco for the FCS championship games against North Dakota State that the Bearcats lost back to back. I was there for those. I covered those, and just to be there was exciting enough. I think the second time around, it felt like, okay, you feel like just being there is not quite enough. But covering that run, there was nothing like it. I can remember there was a game, I want to say it was the 2011 season. Man, I have so many 2011 season wrapping up against Texas State at the end. The 2007 beating Texas State in San Marcos with a last play on a fourth and short. Me and my friends had left the stadium because it was so cold, but we kept listening on the radio. We're in the Taco Cabana drive-through line, and we hear, I can't remember who made the play, but it's a fourth down play. You guys can look it up. In 2007, Bearcats win in San Marcos against Texas State. Not a better feeling. I was with a bunch of Texas State friends, with some Sam Houston friends, so we're going at it. Not a better feeling than that. And then 2007 as well, the Bobby Knight comes in with Texas Tech. Basketball comes into Johnson Coliseum, and the Bearcats win that one. Bob Marlin was coaching at the time, and Shamir McDaniel had a big game. There are so many, man, covering their second NCAA tournament appearance in 2010. They lost to Baylor, but had a lead early, and it seemed like they might be able to win. We'd be here all day if I gave you my favorite Sam Houston State, but those are a handful that stand out for sure.
Well, Brandon, appreciate your time. Real quick before we let you go, man, again, thank you for being here with us today. You do incredible work down there in Houston with Sports Radio 610. How can folks connect with you on social media?
Oh, man, just at Brandon K. Scott on Twitter and at B. Scott from Hiram Clark on Instagram. So that's B. Scott, BSCOTT, and then from Hiram Clark with an E at the end. So you can get with me right there on Instagram and, of course, on Twitter, man. I'm pretty much always tweeting about Houston sports or music or something like that. So yeah, let's have a good time.
Awesome. Well, again, we appreciate your time. We know you got to go. More than welcome to be back on the show anytime, and really do appreciate you, Brandon. Good to meet you today.
All right, man. Thanks for having me, guys.
I appreciate it.
Once again, that was Brandon there with Sports Radio 610. Josh, you've known him a long time. He does incredible work down in the Houston area, and it's great to get that perspective. I know we changed up the format a little bit today just because Brandon has to get going. But what an incredible, another person in the broadcasting world on his side of the media, just telling the stories, man. And you've known him for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And another guy in the Houston media, from Sam Houston State, got a few of them down there. Adam Clanton at the other station in town, Sports Talk 790. And then, Randy McElvoy over there at KPRC doing all the Southland games as well. So, a very strong connection down there in that Houston media as far as Sam Houston State alum goes. But after this, I think we're going to be shifting it over to the high school scene a little bit, huh? Finally kicked off the football season in Walker County and released our football preview magazine. So it's almost time for us to talk some Huntsville Hornet football.
Yeah, we'll step aside and take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about that magazine. We'll talk Huntsville Hornet football. Stay with us, friends. This is Huntsville Sports Weekly with Rob Hipp and Josh Criswell. We'll be right back here in just a few moments. friends. Well, welcome back to the second and final segment this afternoon and this evening of Huntsville Sports Weekly. I'm Rob Hipp, sports director with 101.7 KSAM, and as always, joined by my good friend Josh Criswell, sports editor of the Huntsville Item. Josh, let's dig right into it, and we're going to talk Huntsville Hornet football and other football going on, of course, here in Walker County and quite literally all over the United States as we're starting high school. But you guys have the magazine out. We've been talking about it now for a couple of weeks. Tell us a little bit more about it, and I've got a surprise for you today, Josh.
Oh, nice. Looking forward to it. Can you see the cover right here? This is our – oh, nice. Got it ready for me. Yeah, our Huntsville Item Insider Walker County football preview magazine is out. It came out with last Saturday's paper, but we still have a few copies around the office. So if you haven't got yours yet, make sure to swing on by and we'll hook you up. You know, we have obviously our previews on each of the teams. We also have a feature on the Huntsville Hornet defensive line, which, you know, a team that loses over 30 seniors, but they bring back some of the best talent in the state up front on the D-line. You know, a group that's going to be led by seniors Sebastian Patterson, Quatarian Riles, and then, of course, the brothers Ed and Brian Bobino. So a lot of exciting things there. Also got previews for New Waverly and Alpha Omega, as well as our preseason MVPs for offense and defense. Going to go ahead and give that away here since the magazine has been out for a few days now. Our offensive MVP, Sebastian Amaro, junior quarterback down at New Waverly, was a first-team guy as a sophomore last year. Really talented player, and helped lead the Bulldogs to a blowout win, you know, in their season opener last week. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. Then over to the other side, our defensive preseason MVP, we had to go with some very tough choices, but had to go with Ed Bobino, just, you know, 300-ish pound, you know, over 6 foot on the D-line. Obviously had 6 tackles for loss against Fort Bend Marshall in the third round of the playoffs last season. I mean, he's a guy that last I checked had over, I think it was like around 7 or 8 Division I scholarship offers. And that's only after 1 year starting. So the sky's the limit for him. And I'm just really excited to see what he can do on the football field this year for the Hornets.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to the upcoming season, Josh. And, you know, as we dig more into this here, back here on Huntsville Sports Weekly, and again, thanks to everybody out there watching this evening, man, it is going to be one of those seasons where Huntsville, yeah, they're reloading. You mentioned it earlier, over 30 players coming off, and now you've got all these new young kiddos that are ready to take the field. And Josh, just looking forward to that. But Coach Southern has felt like this team has the potential, again, to reach the playoffs and going hopefully the third round and hopefully even farther again this year. We're talking about 5 playoff wins in the last 2 seasons. This is a team that's stacked and is ready to strike, and we'll see if the Hornets can continue their winning ways that they left off on last year. You know, me covering Georgetown for 6 years, we played the Hornets in the playoffs just a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it's a tough team, you know, and the way that Coach Southern, and we talked to him just a few weeks ago, the way that Coach Southern has brought just some new life here to the Huntsville Hornets has been nothing short of amazing for me as someone who previously was in another community and now here I'm blessed with the opportunity to call the Huntsville games this season. I'm excited to see what's going to happen. And these kids, they're on board. They have all bought into the system that Coach Southern, and of course, as you know, Coach Southern's son, he's no longer, he graduated. And so Coach Southern, a lot of folks were saying, well, he may not come back to coach. And Coach Southern said, no, I'm going to be here and I'm going to coach. He loves this community. He's ingrained in Huntsville, and he believes in these kids. And I was at the booster meeting, Josh, on Monday, and Coach talked about that. Coach Southern talked about how he takes these kids on as if they were his own kids. And he said it. He said, I love these guys. And that's what it's all about. When you have a coach that has that type of attitude and understands that it's more than just football, you're always going to have success with your team.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's kind of something that we talked about. I think Coach Southern's in year 6 or so right now. I can't remember off the top of my head. But, you know, we talked about with basketball coach Jay Oliphant last week. And whenever you get this many years into establishing a program somewhere, it just makes it so seamless whenever you have the kids at the middle school that are learning the same exact things that you want them to be learning from the very top of the program. So, I mean, you've got guys now, you know, you mentioned it, you know, his son Matthew was the offensive MVP in the district a couple years back. Extremely talented player, but they also have a really talented guy coming in at quarterback in junior A.J. Wilson. Was 2-0 as a starter in his 2 games, you know, that he got in there and played significant minutes last year. And a guy that's just lightning quick, a 3 sports star. He plays track, was the newcomer of the year in basketball this past year for the district. And, you know, obviously in football is a guy with a cannon for an arm. and just absolutely electric whenever he gets it moving with his feet. So, I'm very excited to see what he has to offer. One of his teammates, you'll see the quote in the magazine. I think he called him like a young Lamar Jackson. So anything remotely Lamar Jackson, I think Huntsville Hornet fans can be excited about.
I'm talking more about A.J. Wilson as we're here on Huntsville Sports Weekly. And I'm looking at the magazine right now, Josh, and just reading one of those quotes here in the Item Insider magazine. You can pick that up at the Huntsville Item. There's a quote in here. I mean, he told you. A.J. said, "I'm more confident and have more experience," which is very big, said Wilson, who notes his passing ability and that ability to read defense has improved since last year. Only a junior. He's saying, now I know the speed of the game and how it goes. And you talk about a kid now that's a junior that gets to start, and we saw some glimpses of what he could do last season. We know that he is poised for a great season. But, Josh, only as a junior. So, yes, a young team, but a team that already has this mantra that they're going to go into the playoffs, and they may go deep again this year. But that's scary for a lot of opposing teams because these are all new kids. It's a lot of young kids. They're only going to get better and continue to grow.
Yeah, and, it is a lot of new kids, but, I can't forget the guy who's going to be one of, if not AJ's top targets this year. And he's not a new face at all. That's Justin Butcher, junior receiver. I mean, he's been on the varsity team since he was a freshman. Obviously, a lot of really talented guys in front of him these past 2 seasons. So wasn't in the starring role. This year, I mean, he's big. He's going to be a threat to mess with out on the perimeter. They have a couple of guys out there that I think are just going to really cause havoc. Jordan Woodbury, another guy to keep an eye on, who made an impact last year. But, yeah, Huntsville Hornets, they got some new pieces, but everybody I talk to, the confidence is through the roof, and I think their mantra for the season is be the standard. And that's, going along with that they're at a level now, and Coach Southern and the program believes that there isn't going to be a drop-off in success just because you're losing talented players.
Josh, we talk so much about the offense and the defense. We can't forget about special teams as well. And I was just looking over, and you talk about the junior, Christian Avalar, earning second-team All-District honors last year as the kicker and punter. Talk a little bit about his play and just this special teams group this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be great. Christian's a super talented player, has an incredible leg, and, he's going to be a guy, I think, I can't remember how far out it was. I think it was over 40 yards this past week, but the Hornets put the video out there on social media, and, they had the whole team around him making noise, yelling at him, to try to get out of those. I think it was the end of practice wind sprints. And he nailed the kick, got them out of that extra conditioning. And, I mean, that's the type of clutch performance that they're going to need from him this year. Also going to be able to do tremendous things punting the ball away, and they also have another talented guy behind him. So, I mean, that Huntsville special teams unit, they're going to be something to mess with this season.
Jalen McClain does a great job, of course, as running back. His play last year, this is a young man that just has hands for the game. He doesn't drop it much. He can run fast. He's going to be behind a very talented offense. Talk a little bit more about that running back position, Josh.
Yeah, Jalen, it's going to be interesting to see him this year because they've had really talented guys these past 2 seasons in that spot. Jaron Green a couple years ago, and then obviously Cameron Myers last season, who wasn't the most physically imposing guy, but I mean, there were times whenever you look out there and he'd be the biggest playmaker on the field. He just knew how to make big plays, could get out in space and really break away from defenses. So, it's going to be a position where there's shoes to fill, especially with a young offensive line. But if that group can come together, Coach Southern and that whole Hornet, offense, they're really excited about what Jalen can give them at the running back spot. I mean, ton of speed and great hands, which in this offense is exactly what you want.
We'll talk about that 2020 Huntsville Hornet football schedule. Josh, as you know, we'll have the games right here on 101.7 KSAM. Something brand new this year is we will have live video, that being made possible by a host of sponsors, and we'll give them recognition as we get closer to the opening of the season. We'll start things off with that scrimmage on the road at Lufkin. I still don't have a time for that game yet, Josh. I haven't reached out to Coach yet, and I looked on their website, still to be announced, but that scrimmage tentatively scheduled for Friday, September the 18th, just a few weeks away, a couple of weeks away, of course, at the Lufkin Panthers. We will actually be at that game. We won't broadcast the scrimmage in its entirety, but Brian Adams and I will be there, and we're going to just have some commentary. And Josh, if you're out and about, we'd love for you to hop on and join us as well. We're going to have a lot of fun, just kind of a preview of the season, getting some good looks at some of these young athletes for Huntsville this year and and a few of those returning starters. So we're not seeing many of them, and then it'll start things right off here at home. And it looks like, Josh, I don't want to make any official announcements, but the preliminary word so far that we have started to hear, and again, the district hasn't put out an official announcement, so I don't want to put out any information that's not 100% accurate, but there's a good chance that we will be playing at Bowers after all here. So just keep up to date with the Huntsville ISD, and you'll know more about that. But that'll take place a week after, just right there on September the 25th versus Nederland. Josh, I'm excited. I'm excited about the scrimmage, man, just to kind of see what we have this year and go from there.
Yeah, and, I'm really excited. I always am excited for the scrimmage just because Lufkin is such a power. They're very similar to Huntsville, really. I kind of see where Lufkin is now is, what Huntsville has kind of been building towards these past few years. Lufkin, obviously, a little bit bigger of a school, but their school we're going to be seeing a lot more of. They're in Huntsville's district for other sports now. So going to be seeing a lot of Lufkin, a really talented program, some great athletes over there. Of course, you remember back in the day, Des Bryant and I think Jaworski Lane, once upon a time, used to tear it up over there. But Lufkin's just a really talented team, and it's something that Huntsville has had a tendency to do, especially these past few years, which is schedule really talented opponents before you get to district play because, frankly, they're not necessarily worried entirely about what happens in league play. They're worried about what happens after that whenever they get to the postseason playing against the best in the state. So a lot of new pieces, and we're going to see, what exactly they have to work with a little bit out there at Lufkin.
Well, as we kind of move on and look at some more games this season, we won't pick apart every single game, but we'll look at some of these. Willis coming up there to start things on October the 2nd. That game on the road, just down the road in Willis, a beautiful facility there. And I've had a chance, I actually know of Coach Wall from his Georgetown days. In 2012, when Georgetown went to the state championship, Coach Wall was there as an assistant. That's a 6A school, Josh. They have moved up in division, and you got to give Huntsville credit for playing some tough opponents. Now, at the 6A level, Willis has got a lot of work that they're going to have to do, of course, to have a winning season, but they've got the talent behind them to definitely get there. But we talk about a Huntsville team playing a 6A school. It's a good matchup to play these upper division schools just to set your team up for success later on in the year, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. And, more so, Huntsville has 4 preseason games, and 3 of those are going to be against 6A programs. And really not even so much Willis. The one I'm really looking forward to is that CE King game on October 16th. I mean, CE King's a team that's been to the playoffs in 6A each of these past 2 years in a district that has back-to-back state champion North Shore. And then you also have 6A powers like Deer Park and Beaumont Westbrook. So, I mean, you're going up against teams that go up against the best of the best. And, I mean, CE King, they're going to be a talented team this year. Willis, hopefully be a little bit more competitive matchup this season. And Nederland's another game too, not to sleep on. Their team, just like Huntsville's, kind of an annual 5A playoff, contender. So they're going to be a really good instant measuring stick to kind of see where you stack up against the other teams in 5A, especially, some of the best in Region 3, which Nederland is up there with Huntsville in that discussion.
We'll open up district play on October the 23rd at Brian Rudder. That may actually be a home game now. We'll have to confirm that. I know that some things have got switched around. That is showing as an away game to open district play on October the 23rd. All the games, by the way, at 7:30, minus the Kingwood High game and the Willis game. We've received confirmation that game will be at 7 also. Every other game, though, at 7:30. We move on from Brian Rudder back at home, a very tough and talented A&M Consolidated team. And then following the next week on the road at Lamar Consolidated, November 13th will be the bye week. So a little bit of rest there for the Hornets. And then to close out the season on 3 final games. Homecoming right now scheduled for November the 20th. I'm not sure if they're going to move that up, though, just in case with COVID and those kind of things. We still don't know what's going to happen. Again, this schedule could change at any moment. But showing that November 20th game back here at home versus Lake Creek. And then we go on the road to Montgomery, and then finally closing out the season on December the 4th at Lamar Fulshire. That is scheduled right now as senior night. Again, that could change as far as senior night. We've heard some chatter that they may try to move that up as well. So we'll close out the season there with the last 3 games, 2 of them at home, 1 on the road. It's a great opportunity this year for the Hornets. They went on that winning streak last year towards the close of the season, Josh. I expect more of the same this year, and really looking forward to a Huntsville Hornet team that's going to get back into the third round of the playoffs and maybe even farther this year. Coach, I know as all coaches would say, but especially Coach Southern, they really want to get to that championship, and we'll see if they can do it this season.
Absolutely. And I mean, one last parting note, I guess, for me is October 30th, the game that we have circled on our calendar seemingly every year. And that's going to be Huntsville and A&M consolidated, A&M number 5 in the state, Huntsville at number 12. Heading into the season, 59 combined wins over the past 2 seasons for those 2 teams, but only bring back a combined 10 starters from last year between the 2 of them. So going to be a new look for both teams. A&M, I think, loses 3 guys that are on scholarships at the Power 5 level, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of missing pieces there, or new pieces, I should say, over there in College Station. So that's one that I have circled on my calendar. Also, Brian Rudder's another sneaky game to watch. That's that opener the week before that you talked about, Rob. And I mean, they have E.J. Ezar coming back at starting quarterback, and Keithron Lee, one of the better offensive playmakers in all of Class 5A. So going to be a very interesting season, and really we're going to see a lot and probably get a good feel of how the season's going to shape out there right after those first 2 weeks of district play.
Looking forward to it. Going to be a lot of fun. And Josh, of course, we'll have you chiming in whenever you're available on the broadcast. We're going to carry every single game, home and away, right here on 101.7 KSAM. As stated earlier, all new this year, video. And I did want to just reach out if there's anybody in the Huntsville community that can just say, hey, I would love to help out with a few games. If you can commit to even a few games, that would be huge for us. We're always looking for help when it comes to video. And you may say, look, I don't even know how to operate a camera. We can teach you some things and help to produce a very professional video broadcast. We're always looking for volunteers, and especially people to be as backups as well. But we will carry every game as video. If you'd like to be part of the action, maybe you want to be part of the broadcast crew, help produce, help do video. Again, we're always looking for folks, and it's super simple. Just email me. It's robhipp@gmail.com, robhipp@gmail.com. And then, Josh, I wanted to let folks know the games are going to be on YouTube along with radio. Video on YouTube, the radio call overlaying the video. You can, of course, listen on the station. We've sold out of almost all of our exclusive sponsors. We still have 2 packages left for quarter sponsors. So we've sold the first quarter. We've sold the second quarter. We still have the third and the fourth. We're waiting on confirmation, but until we get confirmation, those quarters are still open. So if you'd like to advertise, tremendous value for your business. We'll give you radio commercials along with that package. You'll be on the video and a huge value. So that's an opportunity for you to get involved. Of course, the Huntsville Item, they've got opportunities as well in their newspaper. So whether you're looking at print and radio media, Josh and I, we both have you covered. And I'm just excited. I can't wait for that scrimmage, and I can't wait to get out there and start calling these games alongside Brian Adams and Josh, having you come in every once in a while as well, man. We had a lot of fun last year during basketball, so we got to get Josh involved somehow in football a little bit, man.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. And, hey, we finally kicked off the season. It wasn't Huntsville, but down at New Waverly in the smaller levels, 4A and below. They got their season started last week, and, New Waverly kicked off the season in promising fashion. 34-12 win, over Centerville in a game where Centerville hits, a 57-yard touchdown bomb on the first play from scrimmage, and you're thinking, oh, no, what's going on here? And New Waverly just shut them down. I mean, they gave up, I think, 26 yards over the next 22 snaps, on the defensive side of the ball. And then on offense, just rolled 34 straight points and turned what looked kind of like a little bit of a sketchy start and just to an absolute blowout of a team that's, I think, won 3 straight district championships. So exciting start to the football season in Walker County. And, as our other teams in the area get rolling, that's only going to keep getting more exciting.
Well, Josh, before we let you go and we sign off here, as always, man, how can folks get in touch with you and connect with you out there?
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter at _Criswell. And, as far as if you want to get involved with subscribing to the Huntsville Item, go to itemonline.com/subscribe. Give us a call, and also, go to itemonline.com/sports. We'll be having all of your content, for sports throughout the year. itemonline.com/Hornets specifically to get to all things Huntsville Hornet football, basketball, volleyball, all things Huntsville sports. So, we've got you covered. Just go to itemonline.com/sports, and, we'll have that content for you from here until really coming out nonstop until it seems like next summer. So really an exciting year in sports in Walker County, and we're happy to help bring it to you.
Absolutely. Well, Josh, man, I talk so much about the broadcast. I'm excited to read what you do in the paper, man, because me coming here last year for the first time and being involved with Sam Houston State University, I mean, it's it's a little overwhelming at first when you're new to an area and you're trying to get involved. And I'm just going to tell you, man, you have been an integral part of our success here and my success in that first year, and looking forward to extending it now with the Huntsville Hornets. So I'm just looking forward to reading your articles after game day also, man. So thanks for all you do. You do incredible work, and I know the community is so appreciative of all that you do, Josh. And I appreciate you too, man.
Absolutely.
Well, once again, that'll do it here. I'm Rob Hipp for Josh Criswell. This has been another edition of Huntsville Sports Weekly here on 101.7 KSAM and the Huntsville Item. You can join this show every week right here on Thursday at 6:30 on the KSAM Facebook page, and then following shortly thereafter on the Huntsville Item page. So those of you that are watching, thank you for being a part of this show. Always feel free to reach out to us. You can email me, robhipp@gmail.com. That's ROBHIPP@gmail.com. Maybe you know somebody. Maybe you've got a story you'd like to share about Huntsville sports, whether it's the Hornets or even with Sam Houston State. We'd love to hear from you. Friends, as I end every single broadcast, reminding you this evening that we're not strong enough alone to make it on our own. We need each other. Provide a word of encouragement. Lend a hand of support. Somebody out there this evening needs you. Good night, and God bless from Huntsville, Texas. We'll see you next Thursday.